is Whitney Apke, and I'm your host. I have another amazing episode of the Soulish podcast just for you. And I also have a very special guest for this episode, Yasmin Elzomor. Yasmin is a relationship and trauma coach and is based in New York City. After going through heavy trauma in her previous relationship and going through a rough breakup, she decided to step into her power and understand why she kept repeating the same unhealthy cycles in her love life. She is passionate about helping men and women understand these patterns and help them heal their trauma so they can manifest and attract a healthier and more peaceful life. Yasmin is an expert in many things, including shadow work, and today's episode is all about how to go deep and heal. So all right, I think y'all are ready, so let's get into my conversation with Yasmin.
I love it. Amazing.
It's so good to finally be talking, and thank you so much for reaching out. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm really excited about this topic because this is something that I feel like I have a sense of an understanding of shadow work.
Right.
And we can talk more on other things too. But I really loved what you shared on Kevin's podcast.
Right.
And it just made me start processing more of what shadow work in my own personal life would look like. But I didn't know if you could share maybe on like the process, like how do we get deep? Because I think that's the part for me where I do definitely feel resistance on going to those things. And it's kind of that fear of the unknown of like, what's going to be uncovered.
Absolutely. As I can relate to that. So I get exactly where you're coming from with that. And I think a lot of us can too. You know, it's this fear, like you said, of like, I don't know what I'm going to find out about myself, you know, and it's a scary thought of knowing, okay, so I'm sitting here and I am diving deep into my own shadows, my fears, my insecurities, but how am I going to feel after I find out that this is something that I've been trying to run away from my whole life? You know, that's the part that's like really, really scary. And so the thing that I tell a lot of like people, friends, clients is, you know, be slow with it, you know, be loving towards doing shadow work with yourself because it is a really difficult process. And as much as we want to say like, yeah, I did the work and, you know, this and that, and I should be proud of myself for diving deep, it's like still really, really, really difficult and really complex as well. Because as humans, we are just very complex beings, you know, and we deal with so many things and, you know, so much conditioning and insecurities from childhood, our blueprint, our attachment styles, like all of that, you know, and each person is like their own universe, basically. Like we're dealing with different universes, you know, like everyone is a completely different person, and we all have different stuff that we deal with. So yeah, shadow work is, you know, I love it. And it's something that I have been very much into for many years now, since I started my coaching. And it's challenging. It has really gotten me to a place where it shatters my ego, you know, like it kind of it throws me off that pedestal that I think I'm on. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is something that I don't want to look at, but I know that I have to if I want to be a better version of myself, you know, and we all want to get to that point. We all want to be better versions of ourselves. We all want to change. Yes. But the problem is that we don't want to, you know, go to that place where we can make these changes because it's terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. It's totally really, really scary. So yeah, I love what you said, Whitney, about the fact that it is an unknown place that we go to when we deal with shadow work. Yeah. And yeah, that's just what comes with it. And I do notice that a lot of people feel that resistance, myself included. When you get to a place where you know you're going to have like a breakthrough, that's when your brain says, oh, nope, I'm putting up the wall. Like, this is too much for me because I want to stay in my comfortable spot. I don't want to move. Right. I don't want to see what I have to work on. And so that part is difficult because it's crossing that bridge when you get to that point, you know, and that's the most difficult part of all. And the thing that I do for myself personally is I challenge myself, and I'm gentle and I'm loving. And if something is too much to process, if it's a trauma that's like really, really heavy that I haven't looked at and it's coming out, then I take my time with it. But I don't just, step away from it and never look at it again. That's the thing that I tell myself is I can make that compromise of, okay, let me step back for a few minutes or an hour or just for today. And I'll come back to this tomorrow when I feel like I'm in a clear state. When I feel like I'm just more comfortable to dive into this specific topic. Yes. So yeah, it's really difficult. And so many beautiful things come from that though, from diving into the unknown and from dealing with our demons and our shadows and the things that we don't want to look at. But yeah, I would love to hear about any, things that you have dealt with in shadow work for sure. I'm so interested. I love knowing, listening and learning about people's stories with that. I find it so fascinating because we're all so similar,
Oh, it's so true. I think, it's funny. I actually, years ago, I was at this, it's kind of like this spiritual conference. And I had this thing come up in me of guilt, because, for those who haven't seen my picture or don't know what I look like, I'm the classic California chick, blonde, blue-eyed, white chick. Unfortunately, my tan, I have a quarantine tan right now.
I think we all do, girl.
Yeah. I self-tan whenever I can, just so that it's not so white. But I had this thing come up in me at this spiritual conference as they were just going through different things. And it was something that I hadn't ever thought. I thought that I dealt with it a long time ago. I thought that I dealt with I basically put a Band-Aid on it, I guess, in a sense, because I just accepted the fact that I was ignorant and naive as a kid. You don't know. I grew up in a pastor's Christian home. My family is very diverse. Our church was really diverse growing up. So all nationalities were welcomed and actually celebrated, different cultures, things like that. So African-American, Hispanic, Latino, all of it. Europe, and we had people from all around the world coming and speaking at the church growing up. So I didn't have that framework of someone is less than or better than just because of what they look like.
Totally.
It was, and in the, if you believe in God or like Christian, it's like everyone value in life. Everybody has worth. And
of course. Yeah.
So to get down to it, when I was in the 4th grade, I actually had never been in school before. I was homeschooled up until the 4th grade. So I was super ignorant and naive to games, that kids play as far as like, hazing you in a sense. And girls can just be awful at any age sometimes. So
totally.
There was this group of girls that I really wanted to be a part of because I just saw this connection and they seemed like, they were kind of probably like the popular girls. And I just didn't know that. I just saw them and was like, gosh, I really want to be a part of that. I want to have fun like that too and have girlfriends. And I'm like 9 years old. And so they basically said, oh, but to be a part of our group, you have to do all these different things. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I saw it as a game.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
One of the things that they had me do was go up to the only girl that was technically a friend of mine from class, and her name was Helen. And she was African-American. But like I said, that was maybe one of the last things I noticed about her. She just was super kind to me in class. Yeah. And I didn't have a lot of people being kind to me in class, even my teacher. So she was somebody that I felt that connection, that friendship with. And so these girls said, okay, well, go up to her. And I'm definitely going to have to hit explicit on this podcast, but go up to her and call her a motherfucker. Right.
Oh my goodness.
So I couldn't even,
oh my God.
I couldn't even pronounce it. So they had to.
And at that age, like that's hard.
I was like, mother, brother. what? Like, what word is that? What, how, like, I did not.
You were like, what? I'm sorry, say what?
Took me so many times to get that right, and they stuck with it because they really wanted me to call Helen a motherfucker. So,
oh my goodness,
I finally got it right.
Right.
And so they were super excited. So I was super excited. I thought this was a really cool word. And because if they're so excited for it, then like, why wouldn't I be? I had no framework, right? So she was right there. And so I said, hey, Helen, you're a motherfucker.
Oh my God.
Straight up,
that's
like
bad.
super excited. Right. I'm 9 years old. I don't know. I'm growing up in church. I have no idea.
Of course.
I just want to give you a picture of what this like looked like for me. So I'm staring at her. The words come out of my mouth, right? Motherfucker. And her face went from happy, like, hey, Helen, right? She was happy to hear, hey, Helen. She knew who was calling her, me.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as motherfucker came out, her face went completely different and she started to cry.
Wow.
And so here's a white girl telling a black girl that she's a motherfucker, yet I have no idea what I'm saying. And I'm getting it because behind me is the group of girls dying, laughing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rolling on the grass, heaving, like belting out laughing, crying from laughing so hard. And I'm looking between them.
Oh my God.
And them and her. And
so conflicting.
It was awful. It was
That's terrible because you're so young too, and you weren't exposed to that. You weren't exposed to like that word growing up in church and stuff. And it's just, you see someone crying, you're like, oh, I did that. I hurt them.
Yeah.
Like that's
she never talked to me ever again. She never even came anywhere near me for me to ever even say, I'm sorry. She never even let me apologize and fully warranted. But so I walked away from that and, went on with my school career. But I think as I grew up and as I wised up and understood better, like racial stuff and the fact that I'm white and what the hell is white supremacy and learning all these things and then fully understanding what that might have done and then feeling the guilt of that could have been the moment that she had, written off white people as racist. Absolutely. And I'm in her mind validating that truth. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in her mind as that person who totally destroyed her in one sentence. Right. And who knows, maybe she rose above it. Hopefully. Right.
We can only hope,
We can only hope. Yeah. But that guilt, I didn't realize that guilt, I had understood that I did not know. And so I gave myself that grace. But what was underneath and in the shadow is this underlying guilt and fear that I would ever say anything again that would hurt somebody in that way or make somebody feel less than and not know it. Like, I think that fear of being ignorant and naive has haunted me in that sense. And I've felt resentment towards myself because I didn't know. So.
Right. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. Cause that's important, I'm sure that happens a lot, especially when we're young because we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. We don't. We're not taught certain things and that's okay. That's just our conditioning. That's what we were raised in.
Right.
We're not supposed to know everything. And these experiencers are the ones that help us learn and help us grow and help us rise above. Yeah. And wow, that's a really deep story. Honestly,
it's deep,
that's a
and
really
it's very
deep
applicable
story.
To our country right now.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I love that you brought that up. I love it because that's a huge shadow that we're working with collectively. That's a massive, massive shadow.
It's huge, and I think that what I love seeing is how many different colors, different races, different ethnicities and backgrounds you see, protesting. And because if you look back to Martin Luther King, you don't see one white person I mean, I think it happened, but it was rare. Where now it's like, wow, I actually see the majority of the crowd is not dark colored. It's very mixed. And that's awesome. Thank
beautiful.
God that we've gotten
diversity
to that
is beautiful. Diversity is beautiful because we're all one. We all come down to like, we are from the same source. Yes. And I think that's so beautiful, knowing that, yes, we're different in our different ways, our skin colors, our religions, our beliefs, our values. But at the end of the day, we're all one. And we can all agree with one thing, is that, there's a thing called human compassion, and empathy that we all have for one another. When someone's hurting, what do? We turn to that person and we try to help. Yeah. When someone's crying, we want to be that person that, come here, let me help you. Let me make you feel better. I could be that shoulder for you to cry on. Right. And that's human. Yep. And that's compassion, that's empathy. And we can all agree that we all want to live in a world where that exists. And we all want to live in a world where we help each other and we inspire one another to grow and to love one another. That's beautiful. Yeah. So I love that you shared that. And I think that that's a really big thing that we're currently all dealing with. And I don't think we were even aware that we were dealing with this shadow, and when all these protests happened, we were like, whoa, okay, now it's being shoved in our faces for us to accept and for us to acknowledge that it's there and for us to work through it, feel every emotion and every memory that you had of saying a racist remark to someone, even if it was a joke. We all have been there. All of us have been there one way or another. We've all said something that might have been a joke. It might have been super lighthearted and there's no bad intention behind it, but it's still hurtful, because we're not aware that we might be offending someone by saying something that can come off as, a double meaning to somebody else. It could be they could perceive it as, oh, this is offensive, and we also don't know what other people have gone through. Yep. And then they tie certain things together and their brain goes, oh, here we go. This is your trauma coming up. Yep. So yeah, I think that that's really important to address and to talk about, because this is super heavy on everyone's plate right now, for sure.
And I think just as a white woman, what I've realized, and as we've had this movement, I've seen a lot of other white people say, I need to educate myself. I am uneducated and I am contributing to the issues, not just with even Black lives, but even Hispanic, being racist against them right now with the whole COVID thing, Chinese, right? Or any Asian are, getting attacked and mistreated. So it's a matter of educating yourself as a white person too, because we've been so privileged and sheltered, especially this past generation, because we don't know what slavery is like. We didn't experience that. We have no idea the pain that has been passed down through generations for
oh my God,
slavery.
Absolutely.
We have no idea.
Yeah.
So we really need to educate ourselves. And I'm really thankful for the African-American people that have been friends with me, and I have no idea, and I hope I've never said anything to offend them. But man, I've had so much good experiences, with friends of all nationalities. And so what I want to ask you, because this is still something because even as I was sharing that, I was feeling heavy.
Absolutely. Because it's still there. Yeah, it's still there.
So how do you get rid how do you get rid of that?
How do you throw it out?
How do you throw that out of yourself?
I truly wish it was that easy.
How do you process that? How do you heal that? How do you restore that? How do you restore yourself from something like that?
So this is actually something that I love to talk about, because it's inner child healing, specifically with your situation, because this trauma happened when you were a kid. Yep. And most of our traumas happen when we're kids, and then we take that narrative and we roll with it, for the rest of our lives until we acknowledge that it's there and we work through it. And so what I love to do is I love to ask, put myself back in little me's shoes and, and ask little me, what would you do? Knowing what you know now, what would you do in that situation? And kind of reframing the narrative that happened at the time. I think that that's a practice that I've done, and it's extremely, extremely powerful, extremely powerful. It makes you feel like a new version of yourself almost. And if you try it, it's super, super amazing. And I am such a visual person that for me, it helps to have a picture of myself as a kid. Yeah. During that time period, you know, like a 5-year-old me or a 10-year-old me, or whenever I feel like that situation arose in my life. And then I visualize little me and I put that together and I'm like, okay, so what would I do? And I journal it. You know, journaling is such a powerful tool. We have this ability to be able to write out our feelings and our emotions with these traumas that happen in our lives. And when you're, you know, writing and journaling, you kind of dump all of that out on paper and you don't have to keep it in your head, you know? So by creating a consistent practice, because this obviously requires consistency and strength, you know, like it's not just a one-time thing. I wish it was, it'd be so much easier, but it does require us to like look it in the eyes and be like, I'm ready to challenge this. I'm ready to let this go. You know, and kind of doing like even like a small meditation of like, I'm ready. Like, I know that, you know, little me is holding on to this because it's not, you know, older me that's holding on to this. It's the little version of me. And once you realize that that's the case, it becomes so much easier to let go of that situation, of that trauma. And again, it's so much easier said than done. You know, like it's not easy to just let it go from one day to the next. It's such a practice that we have to put in place. Yeah. But it really is beautiful when you stick with that consistency and when you create that practice and you get to a place where you're like, wow, you know, like it's okay. Little me didn't know any better. You know, little me was it just happened. It was a situation that was meant to come up. You know, it was meant to happen for me to learn, for me to work through this trauma that I have now and that I'm holding on to that's really heavy in my heart. But I'm able to look at it and I'm able to, you know, accept and forgive myself. Forgiveness is also a really, really big part of this. Right. And move forward with the fact that it's okay. Like now I know better. And I know that I would not do that again in any situation. Yeah. Ever again. You know, and as long as you know that and you can work through that, you know, that heaviness starts to, you know, go away a bit. And then you start to speak about it. You start to speak about this trauma. And it no longer feels heavy. You know, you'll know when you're at a point when you talk about this stuff to your friends or on the podcast or other people, you'll start knowing like, oh wait, this doesn't feel as heavy as it did last time. Yeah. You know, there's definitely like I was able to finally let go of the part that was like weighing on me. And yeah, that's like really, really special and really important.
That's huge. And I think that is when you kind of know is because you don't feel that weight anymore. Yeah. And you know what I've realized just as you were talking, it was hitting me. The thing with this is it's not just guilt, but then I also feel disqualified as a life coach, disqualified as whatever I'm doing, speaking into people's lives. And it's funny how that happens, right? We have an experience whether we knew or we didn't, but it's funny how we feel disqualified to do what we love and are passionate and we know we're gifted at. Isn't that funny how that goes straight to that?
Yeah, totally. And I relate to that because like when I think, you know, oh, I messed up on this or I did this or, you know, even like the smallest thing of like, oh, I threw a tantrum with my boyfriend, you know, I'm like, I'm not qualified to be a relationship coach, you know, like that's something that like clicks with me. And I'm like, wait a second, but I'm also not perfect. Right. You know, and I can't, I'm human. We all are. And I can't expect that for me to always do everything perfectly and not mess up and not have my emotions and my moods and my rages. And it happens, you know, and it's okay. Like it's all right for us to feel this way. It's okay for us to be human. That's the beauty of it is that we can do these things and help people through our imperfection.
Yes.
You know, and that's something that I always think about is if I can, you know, be comfortable with being imperfect, then I can be comfortable with helping someone else do that too.
And you can better relate.
Absolutely. And that's what people want.
Process. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what people want is, you know, to feel like, oh, I went through the same thing or I get where you're coming from or we experience the same emotion, you know, that's what makes you feel like you can trust someone. Right. Is that feeling like you can relate to someone, especially a coach.
And authenticity, like being authentic and real and open with your life because to be a life coach or a relationship coach doesn't mean that you're perfect or that you've made it or arrived. It means that you continue to work on things and remain open and teachable and that you're willing to share that with other people because those are golden little nuggets that you worked hard for that you're giving as a value to somebody else.
Yeah, it's your effort, it's your time, it's your energy. Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's funny you say that because I always have people tell me, oh, you're a relationship coach. Your relationship supposed to be so perfect. And it's like, no, it's actually the other way around. Like I struggle so much in relationship. And that's why I became a coach because I wanted to learn more about why I struggle so much, or why I'm always attracting men and people in my life that are not right for me, that don't align with who I am and what I want. Right. So I always tell people, it's like, no, it's the other way around, you guys. Like, it's not that I'm perfect. It's not that I don't have issues in my relationship. It's that I have had so many experiences and so much trauma in relationship that it's gotten me to a point where I want to help other people, work through that as well, because I've done it myself. So, and when you could do that, other people could feel like, oh, okay, I trust you. I know that, you've been through it. I know I can trust you to hold my hand through these, situations and these traumas and emotions and the shadow work. That's hard. And doing that with a coach that understands is really important, because that's heavy work right there. That's not easy to do on your own. And, having someone that, again, you can relate to is such a gift.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. So I guess, journaling, and also when you start sharing, that your narrative kind of changes from I did wrong or I'm a bad person to I didn't know any better, but I know better now and I've learned from it.
Yes.
That's kind of a turning point as well, just in your mindset, your perspective, even of yourself. Is there any other things that you can do to help heal and process and restore yourself? Because I think sometimes just healing and getting rid of, like for me, like getting rid of the guilt, right? Doesn't actually fully like tie the knot, on the process and tie it into a nice little neat bow now inside. Totally. Now it still has that remnant of disqualification, or that, gosh, am I like undercover racist and I didn't even realize it, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like fear and
anxiety, sadness, all these emotions come up. And okay, so one thing that I absolutely love, this is something that I like tell everybody, they have to try it at one point in their life, it's breath work. And the reason why is because breath work is, it's so funny because the instructor that I did the breathwork class yesterday, he was like, breathwork is like meditation on steroids. It's literally like 20 years of therapy in 2 hours. Oh, that's what breathwork is. Yeah, it's really intense. And breathwork really, like, first of all, you're in power. You're in complete and total power because you're using your breath. You're using what you already have, available to you. We don't need any outside sources. We don't need anyone, to do this with us. If you want to do it with an instructor, that's great, but you can always do it. You have the power to just do it at home, do it wherever you want. Ooh, and breathwork basically gets all the stored trauma that we have in our bodies, because that, the stored trauma that comes from the emotions that we experience throughout our life gets stored in our bodies, and then that creates physical ailments. At least that's how it's felt for me, where, I've had trauma stored and it would create, illness, and I would constantly be sick, and I would constantly get, cramps or stomach pains. And it was really random because I would go to the doctor and they're like, no, you're physically fine. Nothing's wrong with you. And I'm like, that's bizarre. Like, where is this stemming from? Right. And so when I started to get into breath work, I started to release all this trauma that I had with my ex-boyfriend, with my relationships in the past, and just situations, that I've gone through. And it has been the most healing thing, honestly, that I could ever experience. Truly, I would tell everybody, like, do it at least once in your life. It is so powerful. And it truly helps you process. It helps you process emotions.
There's different types of yoga that do that specific, like, really intense, like, breath work, like.
Yes, it's similar to that.
Okay.
Right. It's similar to
that.
Yes, absolutely. So basically it's you breathe with your mouth open, and it's super simple. It's a super simple step. You breathe with your mouth open. It's not through your nose. That's the only thing that they tell you. It's not through the nose, it's through the mouth, in and out through the mouth. And it's big, deep breaths into the belly. And then you want to feel your belly rise, deeply. And then when you release from the chest. So it's very powerful. It's a very powerful flow. And it's uncomfortable because we're not accustomed to breathing like that, of course not. And it's like after a minute, I'm like, "Whoa, I'm winded. I'm ready to take a nap." Yeah. But it's literally like a 30 to 45 minute process. That's basically what that is. And it's nonstop. You breathe nonstop until you find your flow. And eventually you do find that flow. And your body experiences some really, really crazy stuff. Like I'm telling you, it's so euphoric. And you start crying, you can cry, you start screaming. Some people start, yelling and like releasing all these emotions that they didn't even know they had. I've taken breathwork classes with people and I'm laying there and we're all in this together. And I start, kind of crying like super lightly. And then I see a guy next to me just yelling and raging as he's breathing. And I'm like, whoa, like that's an emotion that has been there for a very long time. And it makes sense. Like all these emotions that we don't feel safe expressing come out when we're doing this, when we're in touch with our bodies.
Wow.
We're physically in touch with our bodies in that moment. We're breathing. We're doing something that we don't usually do. And there's so much stuck repressed emotion and so many, like our muscles store that, trauma. Wow. Yeah. That memory of that trauma. So I honestly think that this is such a good little, quote unquote shortcut to help you process emotions. Because it physically gets rid of them. It physically makes you feel like, whoa, that was amazing. Like I last night when I did the breathwork class, I was like, oh, that was a crying session that I totally needed to have because these past few months have been super heavy, of course, Wow. And there have been so many emotions and so much anger and anxiety and sadness for the world, the collective, for myself and what everyone's going through. And we're all feeling that, and so doing this breathwork was so powerful because I'm like, wow, like this was exactly what I needed, to kind of release the emotions that I've been storing for the past few months. So that's something that I totally, totally recommend people try and do. And again, that's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to find, like that's something that they want to continue doing, but it's at least something that can help you. It can at least help you release things that you've been holding back.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a physical aspect of releasing emotion. So it's a really good complement to journaling and to actually doing, exercises and shadow work stuff, and the inner child healing stuff that I talked about. So yeah, all of this combined is very powerful, very, very powerful. And that's something that I would 100% recommend to every single person listening and every single family member and friend that I have. And every human being in the world, honestly. So I'm very passionate about that. Yeah.
We should all do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know about this. Are there classes? Like where could you go? Where could I go to go look it up?
Yeah. So there are breathwork classes. Obviously with, everything with COVID, like I don't know if that's going to happen in person anytime soon, but I used to do them in person. And to be honest, that to me is so much more powerful because you're in community and you're like next to people and it's different, it's a different experience. But if that's not available to anyone right now, then we can always do it on Zoom. The one that I did last night was online and it was on Zoom and I just, it was comfy. Like there's pros and cons, like it was comfy because I was laying on my bed and I had my headphones in and I was just ready to do it and to start that. And yeah, it felt really good. It felt comfortable. I didn't have to move after. I could just stay there. So, it was a really cool experience. And you could just do it online. There's so many sessions and things like that are available right now to us and at such a cheaper price because of everything with COVID. And I think that that's really special that these instructors and healers and people in this mental health field are able to give back and do that, because we all really need that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend looking that up. I know that a lot of people are very new to that and they know about meditation, but they're like, whoa, is breath work similar? And it's like, it's 10 times more powerful for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I want to do.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend it. Like you'll have a magical experience.
Is there like a specific word for it that you can Google? I know I'm blonde, so I need the breakdown. Is there like
You're the best.
a specific person or like that you would recommend?
So yeah, I did it last night with his Instagram is Man from the Stars. He is so awesome. Yeah, he wrote these 2 books. One of them is called The World Is Yours, which I just read. Oh, that's how I heard about him. Yeah, have you heard about that?
Yeah. The name is escaping me, but yeah.
Curtis Lee Thomas, I think is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, Curtis. Yes. Yeah. So he hosts that, and he does he's like a breathwork instructor, and he hosts these classes and all that stuff.
Julie.
And yeah, and he has one coming up on August 8th. I know that. For like Lionsgate Portal. I don't know if you're familiar with that, with like the astrological phenomenon that happens. So yeah, that's really cool. And I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah. But count me in.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll obviously send out the link if you need it, but for sure. It's so awesome. And yeah, you could just, also just Googling breathwork. If that's not someone that, anyone wants to work with, then you could just Google it. And there's a ton of online stuff. There's also this place called Maha Rose. And it's they closed down their little place, unfortunately, but they have online remote sessions. So that's also a really good place to find that.
Cool. I'll have all of that in the summary. I'll find it message you, and then provide that in the summary for the listeners so that they can quickly click and
absolutely. I would love that. Do. Yeah, absolutely. And see what aligns with them best. Yeah, for sure.
That's so cool.
So I think that, starting with that, we also don't want to overwhelm ourselves and do too much, because then we're defeating the purpose of it, and then we're burning out and we're draining ourselves. And this work is very heavy. So we want to make sure that we can have fun with it. We can balance out that work and play dynamic, and we can just kind of go between both. It's like, I'll take a break from doing work on myself and do something else that's creative that doesn't necessarily have to do with shadow work. But yeah, it's just giving yourself that break, I think, is really important to just remember.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I just want the community to know that, we're all here for each other, and we're all experiencing, the universe in different ways, but it all comes down to the same thing. And we're not alone. No one's alone. And whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing right now is completely and totally valid. And just remember that, you are not walking this path alone.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. I want you, so do you have anything, are you still taking clients? Are you fully booked? Like, if people are wanting to, as they're listening to you, they're vibing with you. Do you have any programs or anything for people?
So right now I just have my one-on-one, and I am taking clients. I'm very open to that. Cool. So I'm just, shoot me a DM, and we can take it from there to anyone that's interested in working with me. My personal Instagram is at Yasmin Elzomor, and then my coaching one is at the Yasmin Elzomor. So if anyone, yes, please. And if anyone is interested, I am very open, even if it's just to talk or chat or ask a question. I'm also open to that. I don't bite. I'm very open and friendly to helping people out. So
that's so great. Thank you so much. This has been so amazing and so deep. And gosh, I shared more than I thought I was going to share coming into this.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm so happy. I loved hearing your story, Whitney. Thank you. That was really vulnerable and really important to share.
Yeah.
That's where the healing begins, sharing and, having these heart-to-hearts with people.
It's so true. So true. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your wisdom and insight on shadow work, because we all really do need it. And even if we're living pretty upbeat, happy lives, not all of us are sinking into, a gloomy haze. But even if you're upbeat and you're generally happy, there's still things that we can heal and explore and discover within ourselves. And it may not all be bad or things that need to be healed, but it's just so great to talk about it and to talk about the processes and methods and maybe techniques that we could use so that we could really go deep and experience real freedom and healing within ourselves, which is great, because then we're freer to be who we are with no hindrances or blockages or anything like that. So thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we inspire others to do the same, which I think is also such a gift. So I love that you said that. Thank you for sharing too, Whitney.
Aw, you're so awesome.
You too.
I I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Yasmin as much as I did. Go check her out on Instagram at Yasmin Elzomor. And if you vibed with Yasmin while listening to this episode and would like to get relationship advice, she is available for one-on-one coaching sessions. DM her for more information. In this episode, I got pretty vulnerable with a painful and regretful childhood experience. I want to reiterate that all lives matter, and I hope that if you've ever experienced racism or bigotry, that what I shared can help you in some way have grace for those who are ignorant or who have been taught to hate others who are different from themselves. The world is a beautiful and diverse place, and I know we as a community will join together and spread love and inclusion. Soulish is not only a podcast, but a community where we can relate to each other and support each other in our soul journeys. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Am Soulish, and I can't wait to connect with you there.